Good evening, everyone. My name is Catherine Walker, and today I would like to speak with you about opioid response in the state of Florida. Bottom line up front, I'm going to tell you why opioid abuse is an issue in our state. I'm going to recommend two policy options that we can use to begin addressing the problem and recommended actions that we can take going forward. Did you know that every single day 78 Americans die due to an overdose of opioids, which can be a mixture of over the counter drugs, prescription drugs, and illicit drugs such as heroin? In 2012, opioid abuse was the underlying cause of death for 91% of all the poisoning deaths reported in the state of Florida, with 79% of that being unintentional. The problem is also projected to continue to increase. According to the Morbidity Mortality Weekly Report, the rate of drug overdose deaths are increasing for both males and females that are both non-Hispanic white and non-Hispanic black between the ages of 25 and 44, living in the Northeast, Midwest, and Southern regions of the United States. Additionally, health insurance companies spend up to $72.5 billion every single year for the treatment and admissions for prescription use abusers. This is a fivefold increase from 2001, where it was only 35,648 admissions reported. In 2011, that number jumped up to 180,708. The first policy option that I would like to submit would be to pass legislation that eliminates the need for a prescription to access the drug naloxone, which is an opioid overdose antidote. The advantages would be saving lives. In 2012, there were a reported 5,082 drug poisoning deaths in the state of Florida. Half of those were unintentional. By passing legislation that makes it easier to access the drug naloxone, individuals will be able to rapidly inject themselves with the medicine that can potentially reverse the negative side effects from drug overdose. And not only is it easily self-administered, but if somebody is with them, a friend, family member, or even a first responder, it will be advantageous for them to have access to that life-saving drug. Um, the drug naloxone is pictured in the bottom right corner right here, the bottom left corner, excuse me, and the Food and Drug Administration is currently working on approving the nasal spray version of the drug. Some of the disadvantages for passing such legislation would be a negative response by the public because it may be seen as trying to encourage drug use and discouraging drug abusers from seeking long-term treatment. What I would like to submit is that New York passed a similar policy where they made a blanket prescription for all New York residents. And in order to access the printout of the prescription to take to the pharmacy, you have to take a mandatory training that's online. It's about 10 minutes long. It teaches you about the drug, how to self-administer it, and it also gives links to resources within the community that can help people to get over their drug addiction, counseling services, and things of that nature. The second policy option that I would like to submit is to ask for additional funding from the federal government. President Obama has proposed a $1 billion mandatory funding to address opioid addiction for fiscal year 17. This is going to be over a 2 year time frame, and $920 million is going to be allocated for cooperative agreements. The money is supposed to be used to help to set up programs to assist users to get the counseling and services that they need to help to break the dependency on those drugs, and also to assist them with getting those prescription drug medications that can help to break the dependency on opioids. The advantages of asking for additional funding is that we can set up our own program here in the state of Florida and administer opioid abuse programs. We'll also be able to possibly afford a media campaign to increase awareness within our community about opioid addiction and let our residents know where they can go to seek help. Some of the disadvantages of getting the additional funding is that it may shift focus away from the impending influx of Zika virus this summer. We're going to experience a lot of our residents traveling to Zika endemic countries and coming back possibly with symptoms, needing to be tested for Zika. And also because we host the mosquito that carries not only Zika but dengue and chikungunya, this is a very busy time for us dealing with arboviruses. So we want to make sure that we do not shift all of our attention away from our regular epidemiologic activities just to focus on opioid abuse. The recommended actions that I came up with for going forward is to sponsor a bill that would allow Florida residents to acquire naloxone without a prescription. Currently, there are 14 states that already have this policy in place. New York, as I already mentioned, is one of them. We can take a look at their policies and possibly replicate them in our state by making whatever changes may be needed to make it a better fit for our state. CVS Pharmacy has already agreed to carry the drug naloxone over the counter for the states that already have policies in place for it to be administered without a prescription. So that would be a great way for us to partner up with the chain to make the drugs available for our residents. The second recommended action that I would like to suggest is to create a joint task force to research, plan, and create opioid programs to give Florida residents the assistance that they may need to overcome their opioid addiction. And some of the key players that I recommend to add to the joint task force would include legislators, the Surgeon General for our states, local health departments, care providers, community leaders, and more. In conclusion, opioids are becoming a growing epidemic in our country, but also the state of Florida. And I recommend that we be proactive in trying to resolve this issue. The recommendations provided in this policy brief are a good starting point to help reduce the negative side effects of opioid abuse. If there are any questions, comments, or concerns, please leave them in the discussion post or feel free to inbox me a message. Thank you so much for your time. These are listings of all of the references that I used to put together this presentation.